I thought I knew what to expect during a movie night with close friends, but everything changed that night with Jack and Brian. My husband passed out early, I felt uneasy about Jack's touch, and now I'm left questioning everything that happened. I need answers. We're all in our late 20s, and we were having a movie night with some close friends, Jack and Brian, who are my husband's high school best friends and still part of our regular circle. For context, Jack, Brian, and my husband have this immature, joking dynamic where they sometimes pretend to be into each other. It seems to be a leftover bit from their water polo days, nothing harmful, just juvenile humor. Jack and Brian are both single. Jack has always been polite and considerate with me, offering me a jacket if I'm cold, giving the occasional compliment on my personality or appearance, basic gestures of kindness. I assume that's just how he treats women in general. Jack also tends to make an effort to keep my husband and me around longer when we hang out, though he doesn't seem as interested when Brian leaves. Even during online gaming, he tries to extend our play sessions, but it's not obsessive or overbearing. We recently found out that some of Jack's friends have gotten into fights with him, accusing him of hitting on their girlfriends. One even told us that Jack tends to be attracted to women who are already in relationships. A little while ago, we were in the hot tub and Jack was explaining some swimming techniques. I didn't understand what he was trying to describe, so he asked if he could touch my leg to demonstrate. I agreed. It felt platonic in the moment, and saying no seemed like it might make things unnecessarily awkward. In hindsight, maybe I shouldn't have. Back to movie night, we were all drinking a little. My husband, who's been getting up earlier lately, fell asleep around 10:30 p.m. as he often does when we hang out with these friends. He even told us to wake him when the food arrived. When it did, I tried to rouse him, gently tickling his hand, calling his name, but nothing worked. That's when Brian started getting close to my husband's pants and, I think, tickling his hips or legs. I told him to stop. He seemed to treat it as a joke, and because of that, I second-guessed myself and didn't press the issue further. I didn't want to be seen as the uptight or controlling wife. I told myself that if they actually tried to remove his pants, I would definitely intervene. At some point, while I wasn't looking, Jack managed to take off my husband's belt and then bragged about doing it one-handed. That's when my husband suddenly woke up. He grabbed my wrist angrily and said, "My name, you know better." I snapped back, "I know better," and stormed off, locking myself in the bathroom to cool down. I needed space. I was overwhelmed, embarrassed, and furious because he grabbed my wrist in front of his friends, an act that, legally speaking, qualifies as assault if done in anger and without consent. He implied I was doing something inappropriate with him in front of his friends, which was humiliating and made me feel exposed. He blamed me for the entire situation, despite the fact that I had tried to stop it. I just didn't go far enough, and I have a history of second-guessing myself in uncomfortable situations. After spending some time alone, I went back downstairs. My husband had gone to sleep in a spare room. I checked on him, and he wanted me to stay, but I still wasn't ready. I needed more time and didn't want the night to end so poorly. So, I returned to hang out with the others. He wasn't happy about that and called my phone, asking me to come stay with him. I eventually did go talk to him, but we didn't resolve anything that night. I understand that he felt confused, vulnerable, and violated, and that he was also drunk at the time. He insisted that what happened didn't qualify as assault because he didn't hit me. He said he didn't even remember grabbing my wrist, so it wasn't really his fault since he wasn't in the right state of mind. He also claimed he only grabbed me because I was the closest person to him, which wasn't even true. He initially said he thought I was responsible for what was happening, which is why he said, "You know better," that he was upset I didn't stop it. But then he changed his story, saying that once he realized I hadn't taken off his belt, he felt guilty. Eventually, he told Jack and Brian to never pull anything like that again and admitted that he wrongly took his frustration out on me. Because I refused to go to sleep with him, he decided to drive us home, a 40-minute drive. We kept arguing during the ride, and I was honestly scared. He was angry and slurring his words, but I didn't feel safe telling him not to drive. Twice, he told me I should have swallowed my pride and just gone to the spare room with him. Later, when I brought it up while he was sober, he doubled down on what he said. In the days that followed, I tried to address the fact that he shouldn't have driven home in that condition. He claimed that his anger had sobered him up and accused me of not caring when Jack or Brian drive after drinking, though they've never actually been drunk or slurring like he was. He also said he only drove because I wouldn't sleep beside him. I pointed out that he could have just stayed on the bed in the common room like he usually does. He denied doing that on purpose, saying it's not really his bed, even though he had told us earlier to wake him when the food arrived, knowing he was falling asleep there. Then he said he didn't trust that I'd come to the spare room later if he waited. He told me it was about protecting me. I asked if he really believed Jack would do something to me without my consent, And he said no, but he didn't trust the situation when alcohol is involved because of what he called Jack's repressed feelings for me. And yet, in the same breath, he insisted he trusted me and knew I'd never betray him. Update. About 2 months ago, my husband got extremely drunk while we were hanging out with Jack, Brian, 24M, and another one of Jack's friends, Zach, 26M. He ended up passing out on the toilet. I remember checking in on him, and he just kept saying he needed more time. Later on, I accidentally drank from his can. He had mixed extra tequila into a canned margarita, and I thought it was mine. From that point, my memory starts to blur, around 11:30 p.m., which was about half an hour after he went to the bathroom. I don't recall drinking enough to black out, though it's possible. I usually make sure to limit how much I drink when I'm around Jack, but maybe I slipped up that night. Around midnight, we took a group photo. I don't recall the photo itself, but I do remember some of the thoughts and feelings I had at that time. In the photo, Jack had his arm around me, and I remember noticing his hand was on my butt. I brushed it off at first, thinking it had to be an accident or maybe I imagined it. But then I felt it happen again, and that confirmed it wasn't just in my head. In the photo, you can faintly see the reflection of his arm around me. That was the last thing I remember. I blacked out completely after that. The next morning, I woke up in the guest room next to my husband, covered in vomit, without my bra on. My shoes were placed neatly beside the bed, and there was a bottle of water next to them. The bed only had a mattress, no sheets or blankets. When I showered, I noticed a huge bruise on my butt. After getting ready and going downstairs, I found my bra lying on the kitchen floor. Later that day, I asked Brian if he knew how I got the bruise or why my bra was in the kitchen. He told me that around 2 a.m., I tried to go to the downstairs bathroom since my husband was using the one upstairs, but I fell on the stairs. He said I didn't make it all the way down and that I fell just a few steps from the top. He said they heard the fall, helped me back up, and put me to bed because I seemed tired. According to him, I was totally fine before that. He also said that Jack told him to take my husband to bed while Jack handled helping me, saying something like, "She already did her turn," since I'd been the one checking on my husband earlier. Brian said he left after that. I later texted Jack and asked how badly I fell. He claimed he didn't know. When I asked if he knew how my bra ended up in the kitchen, he said he had no idea. I told him it was really bothering me, and he never responded. A week ago, I asked him again, this time in person. He still insisted he didn't know anything. I told him I wasn't trying to accuse him, but that I remembered the night being off, and he asked what I meant. That's when I got upset and told him I remembered him touching my butt, and that he's literally doing it in the group photo. He apologized and said he tends to get touchy when he drinks and that he was sorry if he made me uncomfortable. Once again, he claimed he had no idea how my bra ended up in the kitchen. I asked if I did anything embarrassing that night, and he said no, that we were just watching YouTube videos. He also mentioned that I'd been taking shots with them, which is something I rarely do. When I asked if I ever made it to the bathroom, he said I might have. He just kept saying they put me to bed after I fell. I just can't understand how neither Jack nor Brian knows how my bra came off. It's not like me to wander around downstairs alone and randomly take it off. My husband told me that if Jack did do something inappropriate, he would cut him off completely, but he genuinely doesn't believe anything happened. He thinks I might have just felt hot or uncomfortable and took my bra off myself, even though we weren't hanging out in the kitchen at all. He still trusts Jack to be around me alone. I've been feeling really low about all this, and instead of helping me process it, my husband just tells me to distract myself and stop dwelling on it. But I need closure. I need answers. Not knowing what happened that night is eating me alive. I understand that I can't ask my husband to cut ties with Jack without clear proof, but that's part of what hurts. He says he wouldn't take any action unless he was absolutely certain something happened. And I don't know what to do. A part of me even wonders if maybe Jack tampered with my husband's drink, because every time we hang out, my husband ends up passing out. Then again, maybe it's just because he keeps overdoing it. He did add more alcohol to his drink that night. I don't have proof of anything. I just feel completely alone and confused. I need support. I'm trying to make sense of it all, but I don't know what to believe or how to move forward. What do you think really happened? And what should I do now? Update. I tried to explain to my husband why I feel so strongly that Jack might have done something that night. He seems to understand a little more now, but he still seems centered on how he feels, saying things like, "I can't believe Jack would do this to me. I thought he loved me, platonically." There was another moment that really stuck with me from that night. For context, a while back, my husband got drunk and grabbed my wrist in anger after Jack and Brian crossed one of his boundaries. I'll explain more if needed. When I told Jack and Brian I was going to check on my husband in the bathroom, Brian said, "Make sure he isn't angry." I think he even laughed a little when he said it. I told my husband about that, and it upset him. He said he didn't know if he could keep being friends with either of them. He keeps saying he doesn't want to lose these friendships. But it feels like he's only really willing to consider cutting people off when they hurt him. When it's me who's hurt, it doesn't seem to carry the same weight. And now he's changed his mind again. He wants me to stay friends with them. He's asking me to talk to Jack one more time, to say I won't share anything he tells me with my husband, and just ask for the truth about that night. He also wants me to tell Jack never to touch me again. But I honestly don't believe that will get me anywhere. He says he'll support whatever I decide after that conversation, but I'm fairly certain he's still going to stay friends with them regardless of what I choose. I finally opened up to my best girlfriend about all of this, and she said she's really disappointed in my husband. She pointed out that he only seems to take my side when it's convenient for him. And honestly, I'm just exhausted. The more I reflect on all of this, the more I realize I deserve so much better. Additional info. Comment 1. We were hanging out with Jack and Brian in Jack's room, just drinking and sitting on the bed. My husband started feeling drowsy. He'd had quite a bit to drink, so he said he wanted to lie down for a bit. Since we had ordered food, we asked if he wanted us to wake him up when it arrived, and he said yes. When the food showed up, I tried to wake him gently, but he wouldn't wake up. He can be a really heavy sleeper, especially when he's drunk. I started by whispering his name, then saying it louder, tickling his hand, tapping him. Nothing worked. Then, out of nowhere, Brian started tickling his thighs. I told him to stop, but I didn't say it firmly. He kept doing it anyway. Brian has made offhand jokes in the past that made me feel uncomfortable, but I didn't want to come across as the uptight or controlling wife. Jack and Brian used to play sports together and have that kind of joking, touchy dynamic, so I told myself maybe this was just normal for them and maybe it was okay with my husband. But then, just as I turned to grab my drink, Jack took off my husband's belt. When I turned back, Jack was grinning and bragging that he did it with one hand. That's when my husband suddenly woke up, grabbed my wrist, and said, "OP, you know better." I was stunned and embarrassed. I snapped, "I know better," yanked my wrist away, and left the room. He followed me, so I locked myself in the bathroom for 20 minutes to cool down. Later, my husband said he was upset because he felt I didn't protect him, but he also claimed he didn't remember doing any of it. When I told him that what he did was assault, he got defensive and insisted it wasn't because he didn't remember it happening. Eventually, he wanted to ask Jack whether what he did was really that bad. Jack said yes, it was. I think my husband was hoping Jack would downplay it. When we asked Jack what he thought my husband meant when he lashed out at me, Brian chimed in and said he believed my husband thought I had taken his belt off in front of their friends. That crushed me. I felt humiliated thinking that Jack or Brian might believe I'd do something like that while drunk, especially in front of them. It made me wonder if they now see me as someone who might act inappropriately when I drink. After I had calmed down a bit, I went to check on my husband and saw he wasn't in Jack's room anymore. He'd moved to the guest room. When I went in to check on him, he said he wanted me to stay with him, but I still needed space. He hadn't apologized and was still drunk, so I just wasn't ready to be around him. I went back to the room where Jack and Brian were. Jack told me to open another drink. I said I'd had enough, but he kept trying to talk me into it. Then my husband called me again and asked if I would come lie down with him. I told him I wasn't ready to go to sleep yet, and that upset him. He ended up deciding to drive us home. Before we left, he confronted his friends and told them not to ever do something like that again, adding that he took his frustration out on me. But he was slurring his words and seemed angry with me during the drive home. I'm also really hurt that Jack and Brian didn't speak up and tell him I actually did try to stop what happened. When I told him I was upset that he drove while intoxicated, he brushed it off and said he wasn't that drunk. Then he turned it around and blamed me, saying he wouldn't have driven if I had agreed to go to sleep with him. I reminded him he could have just come back into the room instead, and he claimed that he never willingly sleeps in other people's beds. That made no sense to me since he literally just did that and he does it often. I get that he was trying to protect me, even though when he's sober, he says he trusts both Jack and me. I just wish he'd handled it differently. Maybe by joining us in the room or doing something less reckless. I know it wasn't a safe situation, and I also needed space at the time, but driving drunk wasn't the answer. Neither of us should have been behind the wheel. I'm fully aware that alcohol is a problem in all of this. I'm also in therapy, though I need to find a new therapist. Mine didn't seem particularly concerned by the situation I just described. As for why I haven't left yet, it's complicated. Comment 2. I'm not yet in a place where I can be fully stable or independent. There's still a lot of personal growth I need to do. I've been battling depression for a while, and even managing my basic daily needs can feel overwhelming. I'm not ready to be on my own. My partner helps with a lot of everyday things, and I know he cares about me on some level, but I've told him before that sometimes I don't feel loved. He always insists that he does love me. Today, I went on a long walk and did a lot of affirmations. It helped me realize how deeply my needs have been neglected, not only by others but by myself. There's a serious lack of self-respect and respect from those around me. I know I need to rebuild trust in myself before anything else. One step I want to take is committing to daily walks and affirmations every morning, keeping that promise to myself. I also haven't eaten dinner yet, even though I'm really hungry, so I should probably start with something as simple as that. I need to learn how to feel comfortable spending time with myself, too. I've spent time apart from him before, and I always end up feeling sad. I used to think it was because I missed him, but now I wonder if it's more about being disappointed when my expectations around communication and emotional connection aren't met. I feel let down again and again. Another major thing I need to work on is strengthening my support system. Right now, it feels like he either can't or won't make the changes I need. But before making any big or emotional decisions, I know I need to sort out a lot within myself. It really hit me when someone asked him what his top priority in life was and he answered, "My career." Especially considering how unstable our relationship has been, that answer said a lot to me. I don't even think he realized how much that hurt. Anyway, thank you for your comment. I slip back into old patterns sometimes, but this really is serious, and I don't want to lose sight of that again. Update. A couple of months ago, I shared a post about my husband's so-called best friend, Jack, who frequently flirted with me under the guise of plausible deniability. One night, I vaguely remembered him touching my butt, but everything after that was a blur. The next morning, I discovered a large bruise on my butt and found my bra in Jack's kitchen. My husband had also blacked out that night, and while everyone had similar recollections, the specifics were inconsistent. Many people have since checked in to ask how I've been doing or whether anything else has happened, so I wanted to post an update and also ask for more advice. I really appreciate those of you who have shown genuine concern. Before I get into the rest, I want to address something that's been bothering me. My story has been shared on other platforms without my consent. While this isn't the most traumatic experience I've ever had, it has been deeply painful, and seeing people twist my words into content that invites victim blaming is hurtful. If you've come across this story anywhere besides my original Reddit posts, please know I did not approve it being used. Now, back to my update. I know I should have control over who I choose to spend time with, but my husband has had multiple friends over the years who have treated me poorly. For example, one friend made a mean-spirited joke about me behind my back, which I overheard. Even though we had plans with her the next day, I didn't want to go. My husband pleaded with me to come and even said he wouldn't go if I didn't. I felt guilty because we had traveled to visit her and other friends in the area, so I gave in. That's just a glimpse into the dynamic. As for now, things have been a mix of good and bad, but I'm starting to reclaim control over my life. I've been focusing on self-care, going to therapy, and trying to heal. We haven't seen Jack or Brian in person since the incident. My husband and I started couples therapy, and honestly, it's been going well. We found an excellent therapist, and I was also able to encourage him to start individual therapy. Progress has been slow but steady, and it's helped a lot to have a third party he listens to. There are still things I wish he'd understand just from me telling him, but I'm hopeful. One major issue we still need to address is my autonomy when it comes to choosing whether or not to spend time with certain people, especially his friends. I've spoken with my husband more about what happened that night, though not yet in couples therapy. His individual therapist hasn't really been helpful on that front. He's starting to understand better now. Initially, he misunderstood and thought I wasn't sure if anything had actually happened, especially because I had described my thoughts as foggy and full of doubt. He didn't realize that I was sure because I remember Jack touching me more than once. He had also asked to see the photo of the bruise, and since it was blurry, he thought maybe nothing serious had happened. But I've since made it clear that I know Jack touched me, and my husband finally seems to accept that. Plus, when I confronted Jack, he essentially admitted to that part of it. My husband really wanted me to confront Jack, and he wanted to confront Jack himself, for his own closure. He says he will be able to tell if Jack is lying. I feel super weird about it. I feel like I've already tried. I wanted it to be in a situation where he didn't feel like I was gathering evidence or getting witnesses. I wanted him to be as honest as possible, and genuinely never wanted to report him. I genuinely just wanted the truth. I know in my gut that something happened. I feel like confronting Jack again is asking for trouble. He isn't a safe person. And I feel like my agency is being taken away again, by my own husband. I get that he wants to know exactly what happened, but I do too. I tried, and it didn't work. I don't see it as productive. I'm just having a fear response thinking about it. I just want to move on now. Jack impulsively called my husband 2 months ago, a few weeks after I had the one-on-one convo with him. He kinda ghosted us for 2 weeks. On that call, my husband started asking him indirect questions about that night, even though he knew I didn't want him confronting Jack. And Jack just kept saying he didn't know, and giving details that contrasted with Brian's recounting of the story. I asked Brian when he was blackout drunk at a party I threw. Jack and Brian were both there. This was before I made the original post. At that party, Brian made me and my friends feel really uncomfortable. He was being overly touchy with all of us, but especially aggressive with me. He even said something inappropriate in front of everyone, including my husband's parents. After sobering up, Jack told Brian he should apologize, but Brian didn't say anything until my husband called him. Since then, Brian has been distant, basically ghosting my husband for the last 2.5 months, claiming it was due to work. Jack also pulled back after their conversation about a month and a half ago until now. Recently, Jack reached out to my husband, texting and calling him. When my husband didn't respond, Jack messaged our group chat, saying he and Brian were cooking today and invited us to Jack's place. This brought all those feelings back up, and now I'm overthinking everything again. My husband wanted to confront Jack right away, but I wasn't comfortable with that. He tends to act impulsively when he's emotional, so I suggested we talk to our therapist first before making any decisions. He agreed to that. When he asked me what I wanted to do about the message, I was unsure. We both decided not to go tonight. My husband chose not to reply and is waiting to see if Jack brings anything up with him. He thinks Jack and Brian should talk things through. Since Brian's been acting distant, my husband suspects he was involved in whatever happened and wants them to figure it out today and come to us with the truth. My husband has a very hopeful and optimistic view of things. So, here we are stuck in a gray area, uncertain, just waiting. When I see Jack's name pop up on my husband's phone, I feel a deep fear response, though it's not as intense as past situations. I just want to move on from this and forget it. Facing the situation again is making me dissociate and want to isolate myself. Things haven't been perfect lately, but they've been improving, and I want to focus on that, not on the past. The question I keep wrestling with is how to get my husband to accept that. Is it okay for me to ask him to stop seeking closure in this way? He says every time he's reminded of Jack, it makes him sad. I want to say, how do you think I feel, but I know that's not a helpful or empathetic response. He's told me he doesn't feel right just letting the friendship fade away. He wants Jack to understand why it's ending. While I want him to move on, I can't say that directly because I know it might come off as dismissive. But is it unfair for me to ask for that in order to heal? I already know we probably won't get answers, and I've accepted that. I've trusted my gut that something happened, and for me, that's enough. Additional info. Comment. I often find myself struggling to understand where the line is between being a doormat and being controlling. I think my husband views me as controlling, needy, sensitive, and neurotic, and just knowing that makes me want to shrink and take up less space. But recently, I had a chance to talk to him again. He actually brought it up after noticing I was distancing myself. He reassured me that this situation wouldn't undo all the progress I've made in taking care of myself. He acknowledged how hard I've been working on my mental health over the past month, even more so than before this all happened. I told him it did feel like a setback, that it made me relive the whole situation. He asked if I wanted him to block Jack, but I told him I didn't want to tell him what to do. I wanted him to make the decision himself. He ended up blocking Jack and said he could always change his mind. When he asked about blocking Brian, I asked him what he thought, and he decided not to for now. I also blocked Jack on my end. I also gave him a detailed breakdown of everything that happened. I think he was struggling with knowing who to cut off because he doesn't know exactly what went down. I thought it would help to share what we're certain of regarding Jack and Brian, and basically just how both of them have acted poorly. He found that helpful. While I was trying to write this up, he was moping around and asking me to stay off my phone. I told him I was on social media, but I was actually trying to type this. He said he needed my support, but I reminded him that this didn't happen to him, it happened to me. I told him that, although he's obviously affected by it, I'm the one who's more impacted. That night, my choice was taken away, and I deserve to have a say in what happens next. Hearing everything again is painful for me. He's still a bit stuck on, I'm hurting too, which I get, but he agreed to do what I feel I need. He sometimes changes his mind or forgets, but I hope he sticks with it this time. You're right, he wants to see his friends and have them convince him of something. He's really bad at listening to me and trusting my perspective. He even said to our therapist that I don't give others enough credit, that I'm anxious. He's great with empathy when it comes to animals, but not so much with me. He tends to give others the benefit of the doubt. His parents are the same way, and I think it's how he was raised. He can come around, but it's exhausting for me. I have to either force my point of view on him or have someone else explain it to him, which drains me. On top of that, I tend to second-guess myself, which makes everything harder. I love him and I'm happy with the progress we've made so far, but it feels like a huge task to change him into a more mature, emotionally available, and loving partner. I'm tired and barely managing to take care of myself. How can I also raise him emotionally? I don't know. Update. I think you'll be proud of me after hearing this update. Something else happened, and he knowingly ignored my wishes, putting me last once again. Because of that and everything else, I've decided to separate from my husband, and I'm staying with family. I told him I need some space to think. I don't want to go into detail about the situation here, as it doesn't relate to my previous posts, but if enough people are curious, I can discuss it more deeply on my personal account. When I told him I was going to stay with family, he said he'd never do this to me. He admitted he messed up and apologized, but it's not enough for him to apologize for something he keeps repeating. I've lost trust in him. I was optimistic about couples counseling, believing I was seeing positive changes. But recently, he told me I'm needy, sensitive, and controlling, and that I isolate him from his loved ones. He also said he's not sure he's the one who needs to change, even though I've been struggling with my mental health and had to beg him for therapy for months. The sexual assault situation was what finally pushed him to agree to couples therapy. This separation is incredibly hard, and I love him deeply. He helped me pack my things, and while we did, we kept crying and hugging each other. But love alone isn't enough. I can't be with someone who's immature, self-centered, and resents me. I can't be with someone who doesn't respect my needs, boundaries, and choices. I can't be with someone who has so little regard for me that he constantly dismisses my opinions and puts me last. My mom thinks this separation will be enough to make him take me seriously, since it's the first time I've ever left him. But honestly, we've been talking about separation or divorce for at least 6 months now. I'm not sure if I should give him an ultimatum like, stay in weekly individual therapy for a year, prove you've changed, and then maybe we can try again, or if I should just walk away. I don't know if he can change, or if I could ever forgive him even if he does. I need time to think, and I'd really appreciate your advice on healthy separation boundaries and what you think I should do. Also, while reading your comments on my first post about the sexual assault situation, I started thinking I might have been secondhand drugged. I was reflecting on how drunk I was that night, and yes, I acknowledge I have a problem with alcohol. Normally when I black out, I still remember parts of the night. But the times I've completely stopped remembering anything, I was with people I thought I could trust, one of whom definitely assaulted me that night, and another has been rumored to have drugged someone else before. That night, though, my memory was completely blank after a certain point, even though I didn't drink enough to fully black out. I drank a decent amount, but at that time I was drinking heavily almost every day and wasn't blacking out like that. When I did black out, it was usually just pieces of the night missing. I drank the same amount I usually didn't act overly drunk or inappropriate before blacking out, but things just got blurry, and Jack started getting too touchy. Brian even mentioned that I was acting normal just before I fell and said I seemed sleepy. This was after I had been blacked out for 2 hours and supposedly doing shots with them. Jack has previously told me that he can tell when someone is getting drunk, which feels odd, like he's waiting for women to drink too much so he can take advantage. He's also encouraged me to drink more and take shots with him, even though I dislike shots. I feel like he might be the one who got me to take shots that night, assuming that's what actually happened. I asked him if I was the one requesting shots or if they were the ones asking me, and he said he didn't know. For most of the questions I asked, he gave the same response. He didn't black out since he had to wake up early the next morning. Also, my shoes were neatly placed next to each other. The contradictions between Jack and Brian's stories, combined with Jack's reluctance to answer my questions directly and their decision to ghost us afterward, feel very suspicious. Reflecting on everything, your comments and personal stories have been really validating and continue to help me. They were especially comforting when my own husband didn't believe anything had happened and literally told me to distract myself. He claims he believes me now, but that doesn't really matter. Please don't tell me I should have gotten a kit or should have tested for drugging. It's too late for that, and it's not helpful. From my own experience with getting a kit, they don't test for DNA unless you take it to court, which I haven't and don't plan to. Plus, alcohol is the most common substance used to drug people, so a test may not even be useful. With that said, I'd love your thoughts and advice on everything, especially on what boundaries I should set for a healthy separation. He keeps texting me to vent about work and other things, and I'm not sure if that's something I should be okay with, or if I should allow him to keep texting me goodnight. This might sound like a silly question, but how often should I be calling him? I don't want to go all out and completely ignore him, but I'm afraid that if we keep in contact too much, I might forgive him without him showing real change, which would keep me from choosing what's best for myself. We plan to continue couples therapy, which will hopefully help guide me in whichever path I choose. Relevant comment from Oop. Fortunately, I'm now far away from them, several hundred miles away, and I have some longtime female friends with me here.